This episode is brought to you by CBD TV, your one-stop shop for all your CBD needs. Use code FRESHOUT to get 15% off your next order. What's up, everybody? Big Herc 916 getting down with another episode of Prison Talk. I have with me here David Bohler, who has extensive background in law enforcement. And to answer a lot of your questions, I know you guys have been wanting to ask, I have him here with me on Prison Talk. David, we've talked off camera about numerous things. One of the things, we wanted to ask, as far as having been in law enforcement, what could somebody have done in the situation of, say, George Floyd as a witness? I mean, to possibly have helped that individual so they weren't murdered on camera. As a civilian, what else could you have done besides film that situation to have helped it?
So with George Floyd, and I think we kind of talked about this before, George Floyd kept saying, I can't breathe. Well, it's physiologically impossible to say I can't breathe if you can't breathe. Now, seeing that, what outraged me, I was watching it and just speaking from just an average Joe perspective, was why in the hell did you have your knee on the man's neck, right? I personally did not believe that the knee on the neck is what killed him, and I believe it was excited delirium because I'm trained to see that. I knew I could kind of see that. He's talking, therefore he is breathing. I would have seen that, speaking, and I can only speak from my perspective, as that guy's being a prick. That dude is a sadist. He's put his knee on his neck. It is absolutely unnecessary. You've not been trained to do that. There is absolutely no productive outcome for what you're doing except you're getting off on torturing another human. So in that situation, I don't know that I'd necessarily wade off in that right there. Videoing that would be the ideal thing, but that's based on what I saw. Even like I think I said this before, even with the release of the new Bodycam video that was held back for whatever reasons, sensationalism, whatever. Even in that, I don't see any justification for a knee in the neck. Honestly, I was always trained, you don't do anything around the neck. You don't. There were certain cardiovascular or vascular restraints that we were taught to use in very violent situations, that where you had no other choice. What he was doing, that was just basically he was torturing a guy. In that situation, seeing it until the man collapsed, I don't think I would have intervened any further than verbally and videoing it. But that's me looking from a trained eye. Now, if you see, that's such a difficult situation to describe. That it's hard for me to forget my training and what I saw there. What I saw was what I think was ultimately what was found was the man died of excited delirium. I saw it for what it was. I believe Chauvin saw it for what it was. But let's say, there's a cop clearly about to commit a murder. I mean, man, you got to do what you got to do. You got to sleep at night. You got to answer to God when it's all said and done. That's the way I see it. But make sure that you understand that situation before you get into it. You didn't create so what a witness has to understand is you didn't create that situation. That officer and that person, for whatever reason, encountered each other. You're watching it. So, let's say it went bad and it was something that you could have intervened in, that you could have stopped, but you didn't, or whatever. If you weren't sure of what you were witnessing, I don't recommend jumping in the middle of it. I just don't. I think that's applicable in a lot of situations, man. You got to know what you're seeing. Those people that did videotape that or video record that, they did, I think some people, gave them shit about it. they didn't cause that situation, and there was no way, it was impossible for them to understand
What led up to that?
Yeah, what led up to that. So I don't think you can say that they should have jumped in on that.
Yeah.
Now, that one officer that's standing over there on the side doing crowd control or whatever, it would have been easy. Walk over there and go, "Hey, Joe, get off his fucking neck. What the fuck are you doing?" I'm sorry that I don't have a better answer for that, man.
No. I mean, that, like it's like looking at what we, like you said, seeing the body cam, and then from the outside looking in, it's like you said, it's hard to measure. At the same time, you see somebody like, how do you apply yourself without compromising yourself at the same time? So there's a lot of variables in there, and it's even like, when I talk to people, even about, like, say, what's going on right now in Chicago with just policing it, and just dealing with the violence and the different things, and we know that there's a lot of other things going on behind the scene that we're not familiar with. But a situation like that, I mean, I've heard where some of the eldermen, guys who have their own districts, have called in and asked for support, and they can't even get it from the mayor. So I mean, it goes right back to, you said, like, the politicians, man.
Yeah, so there are legal remedies. Each state's a little bit different. Their laws are there, but what's to stop somebody from initiating a recall vote? You can recall that mayor out of office in most states. I can't imagine Illinois being very much different. Somebody's got to initiate that action.
That actually, that's the first time I've heard, like, in California, they've said some stuff about recalling the governor here. But when somebody says, well, what are we supposed to do, rather than burning down stuff and just tearing up stuff, like you said, why not organize something like that if you want real change, and then come up with somebody, or have somebody you feel is a better representation for what it is you're trying to do as far as change. I mean, there's got to be logical ways of doing things without just having these guys, so-called riders coming from other states and just tearing up stuff, tearing up your cities, and they leave, and you got local business owners who have nothing left.
Yeah, and they're not coming back.
No, they're not coming back. These are people, they've lost everything they've had. And the people who came and went, I mean, they're off to another city doing the same destruction. And it's sad, man, because people, they jump behind a narrative, and a lot of people have made comments about, oh man, you're not with this cause. And it's like, dude, when you really do your research and you see at the end of the day, these people who are anti-police, anti-establishment, people who are just, trying to incorporate these subsects of policing. And like you said, when you get rid of the police you have now, God help us.
There's going to be some police.
Yeah, who comes in next? Because you see what happens when, foreign occupation takes place.
That's right. There will always be police. Look at Iraq. All right, you want a perfect example. When our country went in there and just basically wiped out pretty much all of their infrastructure, everything else. But one of the first things they restored was local police, right? So you think about these people that are coming into your city and tearing things up, everything else. It's not that they're anti-police. Trust me, Marxists are very pro-police. They're so pro-police that they would, they've got a very renowned history of sending people to prison camps, to into slave labor, or just freaking slaughtering them. Those that didn't toe the party line, for the most minor offense against the state, there will be police. I guarantee you. They just don't like these police. So when you're dealing with people that are coming in from another community, and I'll say it may not be right, but I'm gonna tell you, Black Lives Matter, Antifa, you're freaking Marxist. You've admitted you're Marxist. You're communist. I have no freaking patience for you. Anybody that would follow a failed professor of philosophy that couldn't even hold a job, never held office, was supported by other people with a track record of that ideology destroying every country that has ever set up that system of politics, I have no sympathy for you. And so the answer to the average American that enjoys their freedom, you got to stand up. You got to find that charismatic leader in your community. It may not be a politician. But you got to find that one that can get that attention, and you get in behind them. You get in behind them and you push that person. And when they speak out, you have their back. And if that person can influence those local politicians into clamping down on these people, because at this moment, the Democrats are, I'm sorry if this is getting too political, but let's be real. The cities that are burning are Democrat-ran cities right now. They've offered a permissive environment for Marxists to come in and destroy their cities. When it's all said and done, no matter what, those businesses are not going to come back. They're not going to want to, because they paid taxes to be protected. They paid taxes, they paid a lot of money into that city to do business there, only to have their business destroyed. They're not coming back. They're destroying your community. And they don't give a damn one way or another about, who got killed, whatever. You would have seen, had they really truly cared about black lives or any lives, they would have been out protesting and marching and raising hell about Breonna in Louisville. They would have been protesting about several other cases that preceded Mr. Floyd. They don't care.
Well, even when we were talking off camera, and you said when you went to command school, and you had one of the guys who was a really infiltrated professor who had claimed these credentials, and you started questioning the narrative, and who this guy really was. I mean, imagine that. I mean, he's teaching other courses to law enforcement, and look at his background. I mean, could you elaborate a little bit on camera for that about that?
Yeah, sure. So, all right. So going back to like I think it was 1968 to 74. There was a Russian defector. He was a KGB officer that basically went on television here once, basically he was established and safe in America, and basically described what was called, I think it translates to like a slow creeping control plan of basically infiltrating multiple segments of society, one of them being education, your higher education platforms like college level, university professors, things like that. The media is another one. Mm-hmm. And basically establishing people in those positions that will influence ideology and allow this to fester and allow this to creep. So what the situation that you and I were talking about was when I was in command college, the professor that was there, or one of the professors they brought in, he had taught multiple classes prior to mine. Everyone that's in that class was a lieutenant or above, lieutenant up to the rank of chief of police. This man, we were told before this man started speaking that, he's controversial. He'll say some things to inspire conversation, just to get you talking, but he doesn't mean a lot of what he's saying. He's just basically baiting an argument. So I listened to this man come in and spout so many anti-police. He made so many anti-police statements. But when he came in and introduced himself, he said that he had 10 years law enforcement experience as a cop. So the longer he talked, the more I thought, there's no way the things that are coming out of your mouth, there's no way you ever spent a minute in a patrol car. No way. How, and I'm looking around at these lieutenants and these, lieutenants and up, and nobody's saying a word. Mm. And this guy spits out something about the 2000 election about that Florida state troopers were ordered to stop minorities from going to vote, and that's how George Bush got elected or something like that. Now, anybody that knows anything about government or anything like that, they don't pull off conspiracies very well. They don't pull off mass, they can't get a bunch of people to stay quiet about something. And you're certainly not going to keep an agency like the state police for the state of Florida you're not going to order them to stop minorities when there's a large percentage of that agency is made up of minorities. That's crazy, right? So when he said that, I'm looking at these chiefs and these lieutenants, and I'm like, are none of y'all going to say anything? This is absolute garbage coming out of this man's mouth. Nobody said anything. I stood up and I'm like, I've heard all I'm going to hear. He's like, well, I said, where are you getting this information? Well, it came from books. I said, books? Really? books like this one, and I held up his book. And basically, this guy had written and was published several books, and all of his work was always supported by another Marxist professor. So he could pass the peer review by other professors by laundering his ideas and his statements off of these other people that already felt the same way he did. Well, looking at all of his, this guy's in charge of a criminal justice program. He's basically influencing criminal justice professionals, cops, lawyers,
Wow.
things like that. And he, hundreds of people at a major university. Well, in our situation, he was, one of the primary instructors for chiefs, assistant chiefs, sheriffs, future sheriffs, people like that, lieutenants and above. And, I started looking into his background, and it didn't take long. This guy had never been a cop. He was a professional student. He went to college to ultimately teach college. The most experience he had, he was a telephone operator for a public safety security office for a large university. Their cops didn't even carry guns at the time.
Wow.
So he had never been a cop, but this guy was falsifying. So you got to look at the source of these people that are spreading this ideology. Once you look into it, you find out that a lot of the things that they're saying are baseless, and they have no experience, personal or anything that gives them any kind of authoritative stance on the shit that they're freaking preaching to everybody. You got to look at each individual.
Hey, you guys, I'm telling you, we try to bring you guys the realest out there. David Bohler giving it to you firsthand. Big Herc, Prison Talk.